Last night, late last night, a bombshell report came to us from BuzzFeed, and that's what we're mainly going to be talking about right now. Um, it's quite a report, Eddie, and I think Trump's going to have a hard time explaining this one away.
I think bombshell might be an understatement.
Yeah. So anyway, BuzzFeed issued this report late last night around 10:30 p.m. I believe, and it basically confirmed that Michael Cohen said that he was directed by the president to lie to Congress
Yeah,
about the Trump Tower deal.
and I think we should give credit to BuzzFeed and their reporters Jason Leopold and Anthony Cormier. They did an excellent job.
These guys are constantly hitting it out of the park, constantly breaking these stories, and it's funny because BuzzFeed was originally kind of a clickbaity type site a couple years ago.
Well, I think it makes all of those pop-ups and ads on BuzzFeed worth it.
Yeah, but before we start, I just want to mention you might see the crassencast.com logo down here. If you go to crassencast.com, we are launching a podcast sometime next week. We're really excited about this. If you go to the site, it's a Patreon, and you can support us. You can back us. You don't have to pay us anything. It's going to be a free podcast, but if you do back us with the Patreon, you get all kinds of extras. You get the podcast in advance and whatnot.
And a big thank you from us.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate it. We're trying to take the show mainstream, and we're trying to really spruce it up, make it as informative as possible. So any help would be appreciated.
All right, so the BuzzFeed story, if some of you are not aware, I don't see how you wouldn't be aware of it if you've been online or watching TV this morning. Maybe if you're watching Fox News, you'd be unaware. But anyhow,
They actually covered it somewhat extensively last night.
so two federal law enforcement officials told BuzzFeed that they are aware that Michael Cohen was directed by President Trump, or at the time candidate Trump, to, or actually he was President
He was
Trump,
President Trump.
to essentially lie to Congress about his dealings with Russia in regards to Trump Tower Moscow. The Cohen ended up lying. He ended up telling Congress that the deal or negotiations for the deal ended in January, when in fact they actually extended until at least July.
Yeah, and I'm sure those on the right are going to say Cohen's a liar. He's just lying to protect himself. But this report by BuzzFeed, it states that the Mueller probe, investigators from the Mueller probe, actually have not only other testimonies by those around the president and those around the Trump organization, but they also have text messages. They have a whole cache of documents, and they have emails from those working for the Trump organization that confirms exactly what Cohen's what Cohen's alleging to Mueller.
Well, you got to figure if Mueller has all of these emails and texts and documents, there's also other witnesses willing to come forward to corroborate the story as well. Those working at Trump organization who maybe they overheard these conversations or they were aware of them. Two people in particular who appear to have been aware of them would be Ivanka Trump and Don Jr. So it should be interesting to see if they're involved in this anyhow.
Well, and to me, the biggest point of this whole story isn't the fact that Trump obstructed justice and told his he subordinated obstruction.
Subordination of perjury is what it appears the charge could be against Trump if they were to actually indict him.
But that to me is not the biggest story. The biggest story in my mind right now is the fact that the president was communicating with Vladimir Putin or trying to through Cohen in order to create this deal where he's going to make tens or hundreds of millions of dollars while he is running for the president of the United States. All the while, the GOP's platform is changing in favor of Vladimir Putin. It's just remarkable that this is actually the story, and this is the scariest part of the story.
Well, you also have to factor in that in order for Trump Tower to be financed in Moscow, Trump was going to deal with a sanctioned Russian bank. So Putin's playing this from both sides. He's basically saying, "Okay, I'm going to give you this. I'm going to let you build Trump Tower in Moscow, but you have to deal with a sanctioned Russian bank." How can Trump deal with a sanctioned Russian bank? He can't. So he would have to lift sanctions. So there's a quid pro quo right there.
And we're already getting like up until this point, many Democrats have been kind of hesitant to use the word impeachment quite yet because they know that if they impeach him and they don't have all the evidence necessary to prove a crime, that it's probably their only one chance. But you have many key Democrats coming forward now calling for impeachment.
Yeah, actually, Eric Holder, the former Attorney General under Barack Obama, actually came forward today, and he basically said it's time to get on with impeachment proceedings. He said Congress must begin impeachment proceedings, and he also said that William Barr, he's the soon-to-be or the assumed soon-to-be Attorney General under Trump, needs to get the evidence from Mueller in regards to this allegation and provide it to Congress so they can investigate.
Hold on a second. Donald Trump just tweeted a second ago. The tweet reads, Kevin Corke at Fox News, and it's a quote, "Don't forget Michael Cohen has already been convicted of perjury and fraud and has recently, as of this week, the Wall Street Journal has suggested that he may have stolen tens of thousands of dollars lying to reduce jail time. Watch father-in-law." Now, this in itself is actually, in my opinion, witness intimidation. He's basically trying to scare Cohen by mentioning his father-in-law, and that's quite scary. And this is another crime, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, he's intimidating the witness here, and at the same time, Brian, at the same time, he's saying that because Cohen committed perjury, he's going to do it again. If Cohen commits perjury again, he's just going to get increased jail time. He's not going to get a reduced sentence by committing perjury.
Yeah,
Does he think we're stupid?
Basically, live on air, you just saw Trump probably commit another crime here, and maybe Eddie can reply and give some give some of his thoughts.
Let's see here. What should I say? What should I say here? So I'll compose a tweet in real time since we call it Trump tweeting. Let's see.
So this is in itself quite damning to the president, in my opinion. Well, what do you think you should say, Ed?
I don't know. Let's see. It's perjury. It's perjury to lie, not to tell the truth. It's perjury to lie, not to tell the truth. Cohen has no incentive to continue lying. Is that good? What do you think, guys? Is that a good tweet? All right. Done.
So this story last night is a major turning point in my mind. You've got what appears to be a clear evidence of him trying to obstruct justice by subordinating perjury, and that is a felony, a federal crime. He could face up to 5 years in prison for that, and obviously impeachment. There's so much more to come than this, though, and put that on top of his campaign finance violations, which Cohen implicated him in previously. February 7th, when Michael Cohen gives his testimony before the House, that's going to be quite a day, in my opinion.
Absolutely. What I think's even more interesting, I wouldn't say even more interesting, but also interesting, is the fact that yesterday, or it was sometime this week, Lindsey Graham actually asked Trump's nomination for Attorney General William Barr if it would be a crime for the President of the United States to coach someone to give false testimony. And William Barr's answer was an emphatic yes. So essentially, William Barr just admitted that it's a crime what Trump just did. If the BuzzFeed report does hold water, and if it's true, which it appears to be. So William Barr is taking this position under the president, knowing that it's very possible that he's a criminal.
Yes, absolutely. And there's another report about William Barr and Trump. I think CNN did this report yesterday afternoon, and it basically stated that Trump was really upset after hearing that William Barr had been close associates and even friends with Robert Mueller. So he might be he might be second guessing his nomination right now.
Yeah, I saw that. I guess Barr explained some of his connections to Robert Mueller and how the Barr family and Mueller family are close, but I don't know if Trump kind of ignored it or if he just didn't get all the details. But apparently, Trump was watching Barr's testimony in front of the Senate, and he heard how Barr explained how the Mueller family and the Barr family are very close, and they will remain close, and they will still be close after all of this is over with. So Trump essentially appointed someone who has some very close connections to Robert Mueller.
Yeah. So we don't know. I'm not a fan of William Barr, but I also I also feel that there's protections in place so that if Barr was to hold anything back regarding a Mueller report, I think that Congress, the Democrats in the House, will subpoena Mueller, subpoena other investigators in the probe, and eventually get to the truth. So I'm not too concerned about that.
Well, I think when Cohen testifies on February 7th before Congress, I think there's some important questions that our congressmen and congresswomen need to ask. Uh, Most importantly, did Don Jr. and Ivanka have anything to do with this lying? Were they aware of it? Did did Don Jr. lie? They need to ask Michael Cohen specifically if he knows of any lies that Donald Trump Jr. actually told Congress, because that would in and of itself implicate Don Jr. in perjury as well.
Yeah, I have a hunch that February 7th is going to be an impressive day on a justice front.
What kind of distractions do you think Trump's going to try and create?
Yesterday's distraction or the whole Nancy Pelosi flight thing, I think that was because of the report that came out at 10:30 last night. I think he saw that coming and he just tried distracting. So on February 7th, be ready for quite a day of distractions by the president. I just want to quickly, for you guys joining in late, point out crassencast.com, which is right under Eddie, the URL. We have a podcast launching next week. We're going to talk. We have a whole lineup of awesome guests coming on the show. We're going to fact check the president. We're going to fact check his tweets. We're going to dive.
We're gonna have some really cool segments talking about right-wing conspiracy theories. We have a lot of cool surprises for you guys. But it's a free podcast. You can go to Crassencast. It's basically our Patreon a Patreon campaign where you can help back us, and it just helps us build the show up. And it would be we'd be very appreciative if you could help us out. But again, you don't have to.
So let's move back a little bit. Yesterday you had that Wall Street Journal report, and that was kind of, remember the Wall Street Journal report? What was the report about? I totally forgot.
Why did you bring it up if you don't even remember what it is? The Wall Street Journal report was also about Michael Cohen, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the report was basically that came out, and then we got Nancy Pelosi, the whole distraction with Nancy Pelosi's flight, and Trump said that he canceled Nancy Pelosi's flight, which was with several other Congress people, which was going to go to Belgium. It was basically a layover in Belgium where he was going to, where the congressional delegation was going to meet with NATO representatives, and then they were going to take off for Afghanistan. This was a secret trip. They were going to go meet with troops in Afghanistan. This is coming just a day or two after the tragedy in Syria, where 4 U.S. service members were murdered.
Well, I find it so ironic. This morning, Trump tweeted about Pelosi leaving the country while 800,000 people are not being paid. Didn't Trump leave the country and head to Iraq during the government shutdown? Didn't he go to the southern border during the shutdown? How is that any different than Nancy Pelosi doing the same thing? At least Nancy Pelosi's doing it for the good of the country, whereas Trump heading to the southern border was just to help spread his rhetoric. And then Melania Trump yesterday left on a military plane to head to Mar-a-Lago. What's she doing there?
Yeah, so the president not only tweeted this morning, but he, in his official White House letter that sounded like a 5-year-old wrote yesterday, he said that Nancy Pelosi is going on an excursion to Belgium and Afghanistan, and she was literally going to a war zone to visit our troops and to make sure our troops were in high spirits. and he called this an excursion. But when Melania travels down to Mar-a-Lago to the resort where she's probably going to party it up with her friends, that's just normal business as usual.
Yeah, and then Trump comes out with this additional tweet this morning about prayer rugs. If you're not familiar with the whole prayer rug thing, the Washington Examiner had an article, I think it was a few days ago, interviewing some woman who was completely anonymous. They didn't even show her face. They showed the camera was showing her knees when she was talking, and she was claiming she lived on the border, and she is claiming that they were finding prayer rugs. There are no pictures of prayer rugs. There are no videos of prayer rugs. There's just one woman who claimed that they were finding prayer rugs. And not that prayer rugs should mean anything, or the having a prayer rug is not a crime. If you want to pray, if you're a Muslim and you want to pray on a prayer rug, that's your right. But it's this whole thing about Trump trying to spread fear. It's fear mongering.
I don't understand what the whole point of his tweet was. Okay, so people trying to seek asylum in the United States from Mexico have prayer rugs. So even if they are prayer rugs and they're Muslim, does he not realize that there could be Mexican Muslims? I don't understand the point. You could have a Mexican Muslim that's coming up and he's bringing his prayer rug.
He's trying to imply that prayer rugs mean terrorism. You know that's what he's doing.
And it's blatant bigotry, and it's just disgusting.
Well, it's funny because
it's not funny.
Well, no, I mean it's so ridiculous that this lady would say this. How does someone living on the southern border even know the difference between a prayer rug and a sleep mat? Does she really know this? If she's really this against Muslim people, and she thinks they're all terrorists, does she? I highly doubt she can identify with what a prayer rug is.
But that's not the point.
No, absolutely not.
Who cares if they're prayer rugs? Does that make them bad people because they have a prayer rug? What if I had a Star of David around my neck? Does that make me a bad person? Or if you had a Christian
It's just
cross?
ridiculous. It's Trump fear-mongering us. Because when he says Muslim, he knows that his base sees Muslims as terrorists, or that's what he wants them to see.
Yeah, it's a racist, bigoted dog whistle, and it's not the first time he's done this, and it's not going to be the last time he's done that.
It's disgusting, and anybody who buys into this crap is disgusting as well.
Yeah, let's look at some of his other tweets this morning. He had a whole string of them. The first one was the border rancher and the prayer rugs, and that was probably the most disgusting one. But then he tweeted about Nancy Pelosi and about the whole excursion. Why would Nancy Pelosi leave the country with other Democrats on a 7-day excursion when 800,000 great people are not getting paid? Also, could somebody please explain to Nancy and her big donors in wine country that people working on farms, grapes in parentheses, will have easy access in?
Who cares if she has big donors in wine country? Last I checked, Trump appears to have big donors in Russia.
Okay, so this tweet, you have Jacob Wall, who you all know, and he replies something like, well, let's see if I can bring up his idiotic tweet. Just a second here. It was just so moronic that I couldn't believe it, and good. His tweets aren't showing.
I saw he mentioned something about George Soros handing out credit cards to immigrants or something. It was so crazy.
So his response was, Nancy Pelosi is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. She is totally corrupt. The president's an alleged billionaire. How does that have anything to do with anything here? It's like this guy just throws crap out there. And
Jacob Wall. That's all I had to say. Jacob Wall.
This is the guy that Ed and I found was making up fake allegations against Robert Mueller, and he convinced this woman, Carolyn Kass, to create a fake allegation saying that she was raped by Mueller. And we interviewed Carolyn Kass, and she said that Wohl kind of got to her, and that she doesn't know if it was Robert Mueller who raped her, and that Wohl kind of pushed her in that direction. And this guy is the lowest of low. His father, I believe it was his father, called and threatened us.
Jacob Wall's father, David Wall, who I believe said he was Michael Sinclair, I think, basically threatened Brian and I.
Michael Wilcox.
He claimed to be Michael Wilcox. We compared the voices, and it sounds exactly like David Wall. We don't have any 100% proof on that, but the Walls are not not good people.
Yeah, all right. So let's move on from the idiot Jacob Wall and let's
Oh, I
go.
thought you were talking about the idiot Donald Trump.
Yeah. Let's move on to another incredible person, Laura Ingraham. Now,
Incredible? Did you really just say that?
yeah, I misspoke there. Laura Ingraham, she has a history of making comments that many people view as racist and on Fox News, and there's been several boycotts of her. This woman is, in my opinion, not doesn't deserve
A
show
bad
on
person? She's a bad person?
doesn't deserve a show on Fox News, much less anywhere else. But you've all heard white privilege, and a lot of people throw that out, white privilege, saying that white people have a privilege because of the color of their skin, which I absolutely agree with. Now, she turned it around and lashed out at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and said that she's taking advantage of minority privilege. Minority privilege because minorities can throw white privilege out at people and nobody can do anything back to them.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
It's just unbelievable. And what was that? What happened there? Anyway,
I think I just started Siri on my phone when I said, "Are you serious?"
all right, so she's getting a lot of heat for that. I can actually bring up some of the things she said. Ingraham urged Ocasio-Cortez not to judge her and then asked about the privilege of being a protected member of a class that you can never criticize, lest you are called racist. This is her quote. "That's privilege. I think Victor Davis Hanson called it minority privilege."
This is just so ridiculous. You can criticize somebody who is Hispanic or black or white or Jewish or Muslim. You can criticize them, but you're not. When you start criticizing them for their race or for their religion, that's when you become a racist or a bigot. Does Laura Ingraham not understand the difference here?
Most racist people don't understand what racism is, and they just throw it right back at you because that's their defense mechanism.
It's just so baffling. And to me, it's disturbing that so many people listen to this lady talk and they listen to her racism and bigotry and they just buy into it. It's like they desire it so much that they just buy into whatever she says.
Yeah,
Sort of like Trump.
Yeah, exactly. So another story that broke this morning is a story about Deutsche Bank. And for the last 2 years, the GOP controlled the House and the Senate, so there's not going to be any investigation into all this stuff. But now that Democrats control the House, there's going to be multiple investigations into Deutsche Bank. And right now, members of the Democratic members of the House are breaking into two groups in the House Intelligence Committee and the House Financial Services Committee. The House Intelligence Committee is led by Adam Schiff, and the Financial Services Committee is led by Maxine Waters. And they're both going to split up the task of investigating Donald Trump's links to Deutsche Bank. And Deutsche Bank Trump had a liability to Deutsche Bank of $130 million in 2017. So this is certainly gonna be an interesting investigation, and there's so many links and tie-ins there.
Well, I think it's also important to note that Deutsche Bank also had a lot of connections to Russian money laundering. And, if Putin wanted to pay Trump somehow, using Deutsche Bank would have been a perfect solution.
Yeah, and I think Deutsche Bank, I think it was like a $200 million settlement. It might have even been more than that for helping Russians launder money. So it's kind of funny that Donald Trump had a $130 million outstanding loan with this company.
Before we get into the other segment where I want to get your feedback on something, Brian, I just want to remind you guys, Krasencast, if you go there, it's our Patreon for our upcoming podcast. We're also, if you back us, we're also offering additional content, early access to our podcast, access to us. You get back catalogs of these videos, and you get a lot of other stuff. You can get our book and you can get our signed copy of our book. Different things. If you go to Krasencast, you can back us. Again, the podcast is going to be completely free, but we do appreciate it if you can back us. But anyhow, I want to get to something. Do you think that impeachment proceedings will begin before or after the Mueller report is released?
I think they're gonna. I think it really depends on timing. I think that I think the obstruction portion of the probe is going to be released anytime now. I think within the next month or two, at most, the obstruction portion will be released, and then impeachment proceedings will follow. If the Mueller probe for some reason drags on and on and on, we could see impeachment prior to that.
Do you think it's a better strategy just to wait until the Mueller report comes out so you have all of the evidence and you can actually have a list of different articles of impeachment all at once, or do you think it's better to move forward now and just add to it as you go on?
I think ideally you'd wait for the Mueller report to come out, but if things really start to get out of hand, and if more reports like this BuzzFeed report come out, then it's up to the House and the Senate to start investigating this stuff, and impeachment could happen prior to that.
We don't hear much about Senate investigations into Trump anymore. Do you think we will, or do you think it's just going to all be up to the House, since the House is Democrat majority and the Senate's still Republican majority?
I think that the House is kind of leading things right now. That the Senate is too far leaning Republican right now. Although they're looking into things, I think it's very biased. And I mean, you saw it for 2 years under the House and the Senate. So why is it going to change under the Senate right now?
I think the reporters and the media need to start asking some of these Republicans in the Senate about these latest Cohen allegations.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the next week's going to be quite amusing to watch as Trump and Rudy Giuliani start backpedaling.
Yeah, I highly doubt we're going to see Rudy Giuliani talk again for quite some time. After these latest allegations, it's going to be hard for him to basically convince the public that telling Michael Cohen to lie to Congress is okay. I mean, he could come out and claim that Trump never did this, but it really seems, if you read the BuzzFeed article, it really seems like there's a lot of evidence in the form of emails, text messages, documents, and other witnesses that can easily prove that Trump did direct Michael Cohen to lie to Congress, which is, like we said earlier, appears to be a felony, subordinate perjury, and not subordinate perjury.
Subordination of perjury.
Subordination of perjury.
I just want to cut in here because we're getting a lot of feedback on the side over here from some Periscope viewers. Most of it is criticism of us. So I'm not afraid of criticism. I like taking it right on, and Ed feels the same way. So this person said, "Love to see you guys join the military, and maybe their outlook would change." Whether you're in the military or not, we all have the right to our opinions. And
what's the military? How's the military going to change our opinions on a president colluding with a foreign adversary? I don't quite understand that. There's no reason ever for the president of the United States to collude or ask somebody to lie or to lie to the American public. There's no reason. So maybe you should just take a step back and realize what's going on in this country.
Here's another one. These guys were probably born in a safe neighborhood and never had to defend shit. Yeah, we were born in a pretty safe neighborhood. I'm not going to lie to you there. But what does this have to do with anything? Are you trying to say something about the border wall? I'm not really sure.
Are you trying to say it's okay for a president to lie since people live in unsafe neighborhoods? These arguments are just ridiculous.
These guys live in their parents' basement. First of all, there's no basements in Florida because we're under sea level pretty much. Second of all, we both own homes and we live 4 houses down from one another. We both have families. We don't live in our parents' basement.
Who cares if we did live in our parents' basement?
Yeah.
Are you trying to say that people who can't afford a house are lesser people than people who can?
Our opinions don't matter if we can't afford a house? Is that what you're saying? Maybe that's why the GOP is so out of touch. If anybody has any other questions or comments, I'll be free to take them on, I guess. Show me proof, guys. There is none. I'm guessing this is related to Trump colluding with Russia, or Trump or Cohen now saying that Trump directed him to lie to Congress. There's no actual proof, but there's a report from a Pulitzer Prize winning author or or not author, but
Journalist.
journalist for BuzzFeed, who's citing two different sources. So I would say that's pretty good, a pretty good indication.
There's proof of a lot of stuff. If you put the puzzle pieces together, you're seeing some crimes committed here. Robert Mueller's the one who's going to put everything together and show America the evidence, as long as William Barr allows him to.
Yeah, and for almost 2 years now, I've been telling you that Trump's a criminal, and it's all actually laid out. If you put all the puzzle pieces together, what people said, what people did, what information is out there. You don't have to believe the dossier, but you can look at the information in the dossier and link it to what's going on and who's trying to obstruct justice and who's lying, and kind of figure out that something nefarious is going on here.
Look, somebody just said Jewy, 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 so they're making fun of us because we're Jewish. Very clever.
Yeah, that was a clever one. Why don't you just leave if you don't want to watch Jewish people talk? Doesn't Jacob Wall live in Mama's basement? I don't know, and I don't really care. What do you guys think of Jacob? I don't really want to talk about him anymore. He kind of disgusts me.
He doesn't deserve any attention. It's like all he wants is attention, so he creates all these conspiracy theories. Somebody mentioned that Robert Mueller, and they said he's a true patriot, and I agree. If you don't know the story about Robert Mueller, he was actually served in Vietnam, and he was shot in his leg, and he continued fighting, and he continued helping his fellow troops get out, get to safety, and then after he was taking an affirmatory. After he is treated, for his injuries, he wanted to come back and serve his country in Vietnam some more, and he did for a brief period, and then they sort of forced him out. But he's a true hero. You're right.
Let's see what other comments we have here. There's a lot of good comments, so thanks. We appreciate that. Do you think Pence will publicly react? Absolutely not. Not until he has to.
I think it comes down to now is how implicated is Mike Pence in all of this? Is he responsible for anything? Was he aware of anything? When did he know anything? That's going to be interesting to see, and it's going to be interesting to see if Mueller has anything on him.
Here's another comment. These guys do so much damage. Imagine if they focus on something productive. I would say it's pretty productive when you can get a million people following you who want justice and want the president brought to justice and want the truth to come out. If you disagree with us, then don't follow us. That's all I can say. Pence is a coward. I don't really know. I don't really understand what's going on with Pence, so I don't want to weigh in on that.
Did you see that story where Karen Pence is actually working at a private school that doesn't allow gay students or gay parents?
Yeah, Why is she even? I guess she needs something to do, but
how can people be okay with that? It's like, haven't we moved past that as a country by now?
Well, we have, but a lot of other people haven't. Do you think Trump will do the State of the Union? I don't know what he's going to do there. I think he could do it from maybe the White House to the Oval Office.
Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah, Mar-a-Lago just for the GOP.
And tickets are $550 a piece for every member who attends.
Yesterday I got an email from Trump. I'm on the Trump list just because I like.
Brian's a big fan.
Big fan. Now I just like to see what he's saying to his supporters. And he was trying to raise funds. And in doing so, he said that they would triple match any donation. So they would triple match any donation, and that meant if you donated $5, they would give $20. But who's giving this other $15? Like it doesn't make sense. Who's matching it? It didn't say who's matching it. It just said it will be triple matched.
It's probably Putin. He's probably every dollar that you give. Putin's giving $3.
That's immediately what came to my mind. Like who's giving this other $15 in every $5? Is it Russia? Is it dark money? Like where is this money coming from?
Well,
or is it just a ploy to get people to donate and it's not really coming anywhere?
It's so pathetic how Trump uses his fundraising. During the border wall issues, he basically said, let's show Democrats that we can build a wall by ourselves. Donate to my campaign. It's like, come on. So you're basically asking for money for your campaign, and you're using the whole border wall thing in order to sort of trick your base into thinking they're paying for a wall by really giving you money. It's like he's such a scammer. It's like he's like king of scams.
Everything he accuses others of doing, he is doing himself, or he has people doing for him himself. I think that's a fair assumption.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. So how do you think this shutdown's going to end? Has your opinion changed since yesterday?
No, I think that yesterday's move by the president issuing that statement from the White House, I think that that's just going to divide things even further. I cannot see a way this is actually going to end. The only way it's going to end is if Democrats give in, and they're not going to give in.
I found it interesting that Lindsey Graham came out after the letter was sent, and he basically said that Trump's letter was ridiculous and inappropriate.
Well, anybody who didn't think that is insane themselves. All right, so as we wind down here, it's a big day. Last night was a big night for news. The BuzzFeed report. I think today could be a big day too. Just watch the news wires. I could see other bombshells coming out. I think we're getting incredibly close to a Mueller report coming out, at least on the obstruction part. And like we said before, CrassandCast.com, our podcast is coming out next week, and we're incredibly excited. We have a Patreon at CrassandCast.com where you can support us. In doing so, you are going to help us make the show even bigger. We're going to be able to hire a production crew. We're going to be able to hire staff. We're going to be able to travel. If you want to help, and I'm not at all saying any of you guys have to help. The podcast is free. If you join the Patreon, you'll get the episodes a few days in advance and all sorts of other goodies that we want to give to people.
Yeah, we're actually going to make all of these videos free on our Patreon. So if you miss a video, you can find it on the Patreon, and that's going to be free as well.
Yeah. So we can take some final questions if you have any. Otherwise, we're going to let you go. Not many questions coming through. I think there's a bit of a lag here, but how can we impeach McConnell? That's not going to happen. You need the Senate to approve of that 67%.
Wait till 2020 and just vote him out, or convince others to vote him out.
Ed and I actually launched a crowdpack, crowdpack.com, where we're trying to fund Mitch McConnell's 2020 opponent, no matter who it is, and we've raised about $20,000, almost $21,000 so far. So you can look that up and help that way. And to all the Russian bots who are saying we're scamming people, none of that money, we don't touch any of that money. It's going through CrowdPack, which is a crowdfunding organization.
Yeah, it's a third party, and they basically create their own PAC for that candidate.
What do you think of Ann Coulter? I think that she's probably about as powerful as Donald Trump right now.
Isn't it President Ann Coulter?
I think it is the first woman president. Oh God, don't even think about that.
He probably doesn't mean a woman president. He means Ann Coulter.
Yeah,
don't twist and turn his words.
Yes. What Republicans in Senate will support Trump at impeachment? I think there are several who would support Trump at impeachment, but I think that right now they're laying low, and that's one of the reasons why Mitch McConnell isn't exactly allowing votes on certain key issues.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. All right, well, I think that's good for now, and we'll have more of these videos. Check back maybe tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday. We probably won't do it on Saturday.
Yeah, but like I said, stick in there, and there's going to be a lot of great news coming out, I think.
Yeah, and be ready for our podcast. It's going to be great.
Yeah, the podcast, CrassandCast.com. Next week it starts. Check it out, CrassandCast.com. And thanks again for you guys joining us.